Welcome back to the latest episode of TT Plays. My name's Sung Soo, and we have another gameplay video. Game 2 of Crux Lorraine versus Water Tonoris. Is Toni going to force a game 3, or can we crux him out early? I really enjoyed this Crux deck when I was playing it. I've moved off of it a little bit because of concerning matchups into the wind element, but into basically every other element it's felt wonderful. I love that we're playing what looks like an ally shell and we're able to just lord people down, or we have the alternative of going super high Crux and just playing a super value engine where we have so much card advantage back behind us. So really enjoyed playing this deck. It was a lot of fun, the 25 or 30 games I got in with it, and happy to share that video with you today. Now I do want to take a moment and thank each and every one of you for watching, but I do need to ask that if you enjoy it, please give us a like, please give us a sub. I hate asking for that, but it helps me know what content you all are enjoying. So again, Water Toni, Lorraine Crux. Water starts off with the infamous draw 7 pass. So always have to be conscientious of this. This is obviously a sideboard game. So we have our Viridian Protective Trinket in here, and maybe we use it well, maybe we misplay with it in a little bit. We'll get to that here in a moment. So we're still on wind as well, and we have a really interesting opening hand. So the hand has a lot of gas, but it doesn't have great opening plays. So we see that we want to get to Crux as early as possible. We have 2 Dungeon Guides, 2 Pendragons. So we're able to get there. We have a ton of value when we do get there. It's just a matter of ensuring we're able to make it there safely. So the best opening play we have is this 5-cost Phalanx Captain. The Lord of Nothing right now. Discount of nothing. We don't even have the class bonus, but we'll crush in for 1 here just to set the tone. We main 2 cards in our hand to protect ourselves from the Frostbind. Now, Nigel takes a few in the end step here, and he ends up Frosttailing, and he chooses to Frosttail face here. That's fine. I was a little confused he didn't try to kill the Phalanx Captain, or at least prevent him from waking up, but here we go. So he levels up to level 1, grabs the Toni, and at first I was a little confused. There's nothing on the board for him to protect with this taunt, but as soon as he moves through Recollect and draws for turn, he slams down a Guilty, and then it all makes a little bit more sense. Guilty obviously is a house. There was a time in Dawn of Ashes where this was only like a $4 card. Obviously she spiked dramatically from there. 4 to the face, and Water holds up 3 cards for interaction here. We go ahead and force the level up to Lorraine. My goal is to try to kill this Gildis. I have to remember that the Tonoris has taunt. I tend to forget this as my turn goes along. It happened in my store championships 1 games too. It really just depends on how dialed in and focused I am here. So we're going to tank for a little while here. And during this time, I sure do forget that Toni has taunt. We end up running out of Rally the Peasants here. I love this card when it gets us free value, but I've seen Nigel's deck for the 2nd time now, and I just don't think he's going to play the number of allies out there. So I decide to throw it down here. It gives us 3 down to assure we hit level 2 Lorraine next turn. So as we're looking through these allies, there's a couple that kind of stand out here. I love Academy Guide, but it's a little too late for Academy Guide. And Swifty seems great. And the reason I grabbed Swifty is because in my head right here, I've forgotten. I'm like, Swifty swings for 2, Phalanx Captain swings for 1. This lets me kill Guilty. It doesn't, because there's taunt, so we just crush in instead, save the Guilty to intercept. Because of this, I did put my Ghosts of Pendragon down. So if we're counting TT's misplays, this is our first one. Our hand would be a lot better if we had both the ghosts in our hand to ensure we just had that double gas when we hit the higher level Lorraine here. We go back to Toni. They have a GCR. They draw for turn. They play a Snow Fairy, tap down my Swift Recruit, Guilty into the Phalanx Captain, 1 into face. Pretty good board control. And they hold up some interaction, so I think it's a good chance to go ahead and jam the Lorraine here. We banish her Cruxite, but that means we keep our Hurricane Sweep. So my decision here is like, do they have the Song of Frost? Is it worth jamming just in case? And I decide there's only tops 4 cards in the deck that really stops this. We can play through the 1 Frostbind. So we go ahead and we run out the Hurricane Cleave. It's going to cleave through for 4 here, which will be a board wipe and 2 cards drawn. Again, both the ghosts in hand here. Oh, I cheated there. I put the Dungeon Guide back in my hand off a mispitch. Makes more sense because if we draw the cards, we can play it. Technically our second misplay, though. There's a Storm of Thorns being played out here. Doesn't stop anyone from dying, and I don't take the appropriate amount of damage from here despite double checking the card here. Storm of Thorns should deal me each for each instance it prevents. Instead we only take 1. I should be at 6 damage right here. Doesn't end up impacting the total game. We drew into another Dungeon Guide. We run the Dungeon Guide out. Unfortunately, we have lots of good cards down there at this stage, but we get a little lucky here. We lose a Reclaim and a Tactful. We go up to Lorraine. We don't get the sword trigger, but we do crush in for the Dungeon Guide damage. Nigel draws up here, and the board doesn't look great for him now. He's got some decisions to make. He can try to clear the board. I don't have incredibly threatening allies, but as you know in Grand Archive, the more the board spirals out of control, the harder it is to keep the game. So Frostborn Paladin, trigger draws, and he ends up just going face with it. That lets us move to our turn here, and we have a lot of power and a lot of options. You know that we have a ghost down, and I end up grabbing the Viridian Protective Trinket. And if we want to talk about misplays, this is going to be our next one. So I grabbed the trinket to protect ourselves when we run the ghost, but for some bizarre reason I tuck the trinket with the first ghost. If I would have tucked the Sword of Seeking, we have a lot more insulation here, especially if we get greedy here as I do. So we go ahead, we swing for 3, we swing for 1 more to kill the Paladin, and then I decide to jam the next Ghost of Pendragon. If we would have tucked the sword first, then we still have the Viridian Protective Trinket for the second ghost, and then the ghost can ETB tuck the trinket, but it protects it from the Frostbind. So I don't know why I played that so poorly, other than, I don't know, just a bad player. But that's our 3rd misplay, if you're counting, in this 10-minute game here. We look at our cards, we contemplate our life, we ship it over to Nigel, and we see what he presents. We're not in a bad place, but it's kind of in spite of ourselves, not because we're playing well. Bulwark Sword comes down, so I assume he's kind of value trading out that Ghost of Pendragon. Gets him a Karazi Trapper, and then the Trapper plus the Bulwark is of course enough to pull out the Ghost. I accidentally put the ghost in Banish, but we realize it in a second, and we put it down into the graveyard. Move to our turn. I see the Viridian Protective Trinket. I'm reminded of how badly I played last turn with it. But it's okay. We can play better this time. I'm just going to grab a GCR. We're going to dig. Banner Knight, Crux Sight for turn, and here's when we notice the ghost is in the wrong place. So we'll go ahead and crux the ghost back here in just a second. Banner Knight first. Crux. Replay the ghost. And the ghost goes ahead and tucks the Sword of Seeking. And one of the best 2 cards we could possibly draw here in our deck, well, it's actually a Phalanx Captain, because of the 4 cost reduction of our 4 human allies on board. This gives us this double Lord effect for all humans. So this Ghost of Pendragon is going to crush in for 5. Dungeon Guide for 2. Dungeon Guide for 3. Banner Knight for 2. Swifty for 3. And that's game before we even make it to the Phalanx Captain. So despite us keeping the hand because of our powerful Crux card, it's just our Lords that end up bringing the game home. Despite our various misplays, we're able to secure this one again. I apologize for those misplays. We'll continue to try to do better later. I do want to take this time again to thank each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, everyone, cheers and happy gaming.